The truth is, you won't be safe.
And welcome back to another edition of the Michael Decon program, reporting from Hell Central, California. The pleasure is all yours. This is a very different kind of show, a place where we don't feel so alone. First-time listeners, thank you kindly for finding this. This is where gold falls from the sky. On occasion, of course. On occasion. Tonight the planets have aligned. Joining us this evening is Mr. Jeffrey Prather. Jeffrey is a retired Army officer, ex-DEA special agent, former DIA, intelligence officer turned whistleblower, then targeted by our very own government. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing us into your hearts and into your minds. Here we are again on a night like this. Great to be back. Great to be back. It's good to see all of you out there yet again, wherever the hell you are, on this great island called Earth. And yes, the chat room and the wonderful bastards that listen in on the podcast version of this program. Respect. Now, without further ado, let's get down to brass taxes and bring in Mr. Prather, who is patiently waiting right now. Jeff, are you with us?
I am.
There you are. I'm sorry for the delay.
No problem.
I got excited during the intro. It's the music, it gets me fired up every time.
Well, there's plenty to be fired up about.
Oh, yes. So, welcome back to the program. I hope everything is going well for you and your family, Jeff.
Going well, other than my radio show being canceled and censored, but podcasts are going well. Everything else is going well.
It's been a hell of a year, and what many have been describing to me as purgatory. I'm not really religious, to be honest with you, Jeff, but I feel like I've been crucified this year.
Really? What happened?
Oh, just everything going on with the CCP virus.
Oh, well, purgatory. I'm out of a Catholic orphanage and was raised Catholic. Not now. I just run a Christian chaplaincy, but purgatory is in between heaven
Right.
and everybody's life's been on hold. But that's by design. That's clearly by design.
Very ridiculous. And of course, you just mentioned your show being canceled. I mentioned that in the ending of one of the previous shows I've done. Can you tell the listeners what happened there?
Well, it's just like all the rest of the censorship. Big media and big tech is censoring everybody on everything. They've even censored Trump. So it's no real surprise, but I don't know why they just said. Now, people from the other shows did send me some emails and give me some information, and they were saying they were trying to shut down racist hatred that I was spewing, which is kind of funny since I was on a Black conservatives radio show for a year and a half. James T. Harris, I was that guy from that thing, and I was on a Hispanic radio show for several years, Chips and Salsa. And my martial arts teacher is Japanese, and my wisdom teacher is Apache. So kind of funny, but it fits the narrative. Probably because I was saying that Black lives don't matter. I'm talking about the 20 million plus aborted Black babies since Margaret Sanger brought abortion to legality to abort Black babies. That's a quote from her. I said it was just for a couple Black criminals, in particular, one Black criminal, and that was former President Obama for all of his crimes. And I mentioned also that, and of course, I've done lots of shows laying out all the crimes, and that's how I got crossed with the government, went from hero to zero with the DEA, with Fast and Furious, exposing the DEA, my old agency, allowing drugs to be run north through the Sinaloan cartel. And of course, I've laid out all that facts, but to accuse someone, they don't want that truth out there, so they abruptly censored me by canceling me.
Incredible. And they labeled you a racist, which of course is so far from the truth, it's laughable.
It is. I mean, I'm always talking, I usually talk about native rights because that's my heritage, and because there's plenty of people talking about the sins against African tribal peoples, but not many people are talking about the sins against Turtle Island North American tribal peoples. And they've actually had more done to them, I would argue, than Black peoples. Indian peoples in America don't get the right to vote, don't become citizens until 1924. They don't get freedom of religion until 1978.
Very true.
But you don't see them burning down everything because they're doing the hard work of rebuilding their cultures, their languages, their ceremonies, and they're doing it.
And now, of course, the radio show has been terminated indefinitely.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to get time to file a breach of contract, but FCC said they didn't cover it. But it's just a leadership thing. It's just that I'm standing up to them. But I'm doing a podcast at jeffreyprather.com, and I'm on YouTube and iHeart. And actually, I've got more listeners doing the podcast, and I do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays than I ever had locally, and it's a lot more smoother because I don't have to break for commercials.
Right. I would expect that, though. I would expect that you would have much more success just doing the show online than you would opposed to doing it under someone else's control.
Well, I'm just trying to catch up with you, you know.
Well, you're almost there. By the way, you are still teaching martial arts classes without any sort of harassment, correct? Or what's the issue there?
I am. I was teaching in my dojo today, bujinkanusa.com. I've been teaching. My dojo's been open for 30 years. I've been in martial arts since 67, whatever is that, 53, 54 years. And we are an essential self-defense center. So we are
Love
not
that.
a gym. And so we did not shut down. We're taking precautions, but
Good, good, good.
we're not obeying the ridiculous, absurd rules of the state. You know, in Pima County, where I'm at in Tucson,
Right.
nobody below 35 has died of coronavirus. There's no transmission from kids to adults, and it's a complete psyop. It's a biological weapon. Came out of Wuhan. I mean, I work in competitive intelligence, so I'm really up on that. But it's being used as a psychological operations vector, and it's being used for economic battle in the Chinese concept of unrestricted warfare.
Right. And we'll get into that in a moment here. And going back to the classes you teach, so no one's ever pressed you on that yet locally, right?
Not yet, and I'm
Good.
teaching
Okay,
my
good, good.
handgun class every Wednesday night as well, and I also offer online classes. But I have a lot of my kids' parents are teachers, and
Mm,
teachers, they're good people, but they tend to be very liberal. I actually have liberal friends, believe it or not, and so they've kind of pulled their kids and pulled back because they're afraid to open
I see.
because they think it's going to happen, but they're just not looking at the data at all.
And you
The
have
science.
and you have children yourself, by the way, in case
I
anyone
do.
was wondering. Yes. And what's going on with them and their schooling situation, if you don't mind me asking?
No, I actually love you asking. That's a good point. So, I'm very spiritual. I practice Judeo-Christian and Native uh, spirituality, and I have a chaplaincy. I have a chaplaincy camp coming up. That's christchaplaincy.com. I'll just keep plugging my websites as
Go
we
ahead.
talk. Uh,
It's
but
okay.
my kids were in a Christian school here, and the older folks retired, and it has been taken over by what I call woke Christians. And so there's no real leadership there, and there's teachers that are supporting Black Lives Matter. And of course, if you read the manifesto of Black Lives Matter, it says of many things. It says, besides being trained Marxist, and Marxists and communists are against any faith except for them in charge as gods. But it also is for the destruction of the nuclear family, and of course that is divinely based. And there's no outrage. But I'm not surprised because there's nothing more left wing in this country than the education system. And it's not that they're bad people, it's just that they have been lied to and they have been propagandized. I saw an interview a while back where somebody was interviewing a couple grade school teachers, and he goes, "So what year did America get its independence?" And the teacher went, 17 something. She said, "Well, we don't teach that. We teach,
Wow.
Black Lives Matter and social justice." And
Mm.
so I'm homeschooling my kids, or
Okay, well,
rather,
that's
my
good.
wonderful wife is, yeah, my wife is doing most of the work. But I taught a history class the other day, and there's lots of homeschooling going on, and that's a really important point. Is there's a shadow government, and a lot of people don't understand that term. They think it's a news term. It's actually an unconventional warfare term. And so a shadow government is to provide all the other services that the regular government that you're trying to overthrow is providing. And that's what Obama's doing with the deep state, with the FBI, with the CIA, with the media, all that. But we have to counter that as well. So that means we should not let our kids go be propagandized by these uh, left wing destroyers of
Right.
our republic.
And those
So
parents that
there's,
those parents that you are talking about, those are the normies, though, Jeff.
yeah, yeah. So here in Tucson, they haven't opened the schools. They're doing distance learning, even though there's no scientific basis for it at all. But like back east in New York, they're starting to open up, and there's a reason for that. And there's a left-wing teacher that was on some platform saying she's worried about conservative parents listening to the online Zoom classes.
Hmm.
So why would a teacher be worried about a parent listening to a class unless they're propagandizing our kids? And the same, so why they're opening up back there is they've just realized that they don't really understand what they're doing. Just like when they're burning down their own cities. You don't burn down your own cities, you burn down the enemy's cities. But they're very confused because they don't know any history. So all us military guys are like, okay, sorry about the innocent people there, but that really doesn't affect us. But the schools back east are opening because they're realizing that they're not going to be able to propagandize another generation if they're not controlling them. So
Right.
the answer is, even if they open, is homeschool, and there's plenty of groups, there's plenty of curriculum. You don't have to do it all by yourself. But that's a great. I'm glad you brought that up because that's a really.
And you have daughters, by the way, right?
I do.
And so,
Yes.
so you're telling me you're not excited for them to learn about the LGBT history in school? Is that what you're telling me, Jeff?
Certainly. Certainly. Yeah. And I will
Understood.
hasten to add that I have homosexual and lesbian students,
Sure.
and congregants and everything,
Right.
and we love them and everything. But that is not the way of procreation, and that marriage is between a man and a woman because the unique union of that is children.
Yeah. First of all, why
Um,
would they even be teaching this at school?
well, they shouldn't.
Exactly.
Uh, but they
Ridiculous.
but that's what they're. But this is a clear propaganda. What communist countries have done in Russia, in China, wherever you, in Venezuela, and I worked in Venezuela. This is what they do. They're doing it now. We're in the middle of an insurgency. We're not in a civil war, not yet anyway, but we're in the middle of a communist insurgency, and it's unrestricted warfare doctrine, and they're doing everything they can um, to bring the insurgency to conventional warfare, and the conventional warfare would then be civil war. But we're not there yet.
Not there yet. By the way, Jeff, how long have you been training?
I've been training in martial arts since 1967.
Since 1967. There's a certain Fox News anchor by the name of Sean Hannity. He's been bragging for a while now about all the training he does. I was wondering, Jeff, do you think you could take him in a fight?
Yeah, I've heard him talk about, you know, if I had a dime for everybody who's walked in my dojo door and said, "Yeah, I did karate, K-R-O-D-D-Y, instead of karate, which means empty hand in Japanese."
Right.
Um, yeah, um, but good kudos for him for getting out and doing something. Budo martial arts is really good for you because you learn how to handle crisis and chaos. Um, and there's lots of studies that show that uh, folks like the now under siege Boy Scouts, but martial artists, those are the kind of people that end up jumping in car accidents and doing things because they've kinetically learned how to do things.
Right. So, in other words, you can take Sean Hannity in a hand-to-hand
I think
combat.
I'm pretty sure I could take Sean.
Oh, okay, good. I was going to say, I'm sure you could take him. I've seen the way he punches. Don't worry.
Oh, have you? I've
Oh,
never
yeah.
seen. Yeah.
Oof. I'm going to have to share a
Well, I
clip
have
with you.
lots of DVDs. I have, probably 20 martial arts DVDs that sell. I sell them. They sell on Budo Video. They all over the world. And I've in my other company, Warrior School, I've trained over 20,000 military operators from all branches. I've been a firearms instructor since 1993, and My biggest course was well, my combative course, my hand-to-hand combat course. I've had classes up to 600 down at Camp Shelby when the Second Gulf War was kicking up, and I've taught over 250 5-day pre-deployment courses to most of the intelligence agencies as well, and all the military branches, including the Coast Guard. Um, and so I'm very proficient, unarmed and armed.
You can get it done. And Jeff, what is your opinion on police being quote unquote defunded?
It is a terrible concept, but it's very obvious what they're trying to do. Um, this is essentially what any tyranny does: is they defang, disarm, defund, dismantle the protectors, and the protectors are essentially the police and the military. Even if you go back to uh, the Lakota people or the Plains Indian peoples, which are about as free as you could get, they still had um, police. They kind of rotated the duty, and they would stop anybody from shooting at the buffalo early to stampede the herd because everybody had to get a chance. But everybody has had to have protectors, and for external threats, that is the military, which I'm a retired member of, and for internal threats, that is typically the police. But after they finish dismantling, defanging the police, they'll come after the military too. But notice what they did immediately. Chaz is a great little kinetic lesson because the first thing they did was bring in their own long guns and set up their own borders.
That's what they did. Remarkably, and as a man of the former uniform, and I of course have the deepest respect for you and those who work in law enforcement and those who serve this country, what do you make of those police officers taking a knee during the friendly protesting, Jeff?
Well, the knee that starts with Kaepernick, who was raised by a white family, by the way, and the knee was advised to him by a former Green Beret turned NBA player, as a way to develop rapport, because I got to serve in special forces, and that's where all the beard stuff starts. Is when the ODA 555 and 595 go into Afghanistan. They don't have much in common with Afghanistan Mujahideen hillbillies, so the rapport starts with nice beard, and then you start building the rapport from there. And so the suggestion was to take a knee rather than sit. Um, so where police are doing it, I think they're trying to build rapport. Um, I don't really care. I wouldn't do it myself, but I don't really care much for what grown males who are playing children's games do at all. My heroes are, Green Berets and cops like that. I can appreciate that these guys are great athletes, but I really have very little interest in them.
Understood, and I feel the exact same way. I don't really care about their opinions on various serious issues in the world. I just want them to play the game. That's all fine with me, but of course things have changed tremendously throughout the last, what, 5, maybe even 6, 7 years, we could say. And everything's really been politicized. And of course, the whole knee situation, that's really done wonders for the NFL as a whole. And you're seeing what's going on now with the ratings of even well, actually, hold on one second. We do have a call here. I'll get back to what I was trying to convey to you here, Jeff, but the sound here scared the hell out of me. Caller, you are live. What's going on?
Hey, Michael.
How you doing?
Nice hearing. I'm doing outstanding, brother. It's nice hearing. I didn't hear his rank, but Mr. Prather. I was not ODA or anything like that. I worked for a federal agency, but it sounds like we chewed some of the same dirt. it's really interesting that people don't understand a lot of the conspiracy theories, and I'm sure he'll agree, or he can disagree too. You know, the government's way too incompetent to do a lot of the stuff that people think they do, although the FBI proved how incompetent they are. And of course, the one indictment they have where the guy pled guilty is proving this fact out. And I'd just like to hear his thoughts on that. And honestly, you know who I am, brother. It's just something I'd like to get another take from somebody who's been in the game for a while.
Understood. Since I have
And
you here,
I'll mute myself.
that's okay.
Yeah.
By the way, I just had a question for you. Are you doing any jobs soon out there?
Yeah, I'm right now. I'm off the internet, except for I tuned into your show several times.
Okay.
Because I'm just getting overloaded with things, and that's until the end of August. I'm not getting back on.
Are you in the States right now? Can you say?
Yeah, I'm in the States.
Okay.
I'm doing something, but I'm in the States.
All right. Gotcha.
All right, brother. I'll mute myself and listen.
All right. Jeff, go ahead.
Well, thanks for the call there. My, I guess it's Brother in Blue or, so yeah, with the NFL, it's, get woke and go broke. And, that's fine with me because I wasn't watching them, anyway. On Kleinsmith, that is the FBI attorney who actually changed evidence, which is huge, the way they present it. But evidence tampering is huge. And I think he's going to plead guilty to one charge, which is absurd, and nothing has happened to all the FISA warrants. And so remember, I was a Drug Enforcement Administration special agent, SNOCAP special operator, primary firearms instructor. So I had a TS, top secret, special compartment information clearance with the DOJ. And then when I left active duty as a major, by the way, to your caller, I used to always like to say major pain in the butt. But because I was a military intelligence branch officer and I'd spent most of my time in special operations, primarily in psychological operations and in special forces, I was recruited into Foreign Operations Group, which eventually became Foreign Intelligence Activity, which eventually rolled into the Defense Intelligence Agency's Defense Human Service, which is like the CIA's clandestine service, human spies. So I spent my entire career in these three areas and triple credentialed there. So I'm pretty familiar with all of them. And your caller is right. They are very incompetent. Not only are they corrupt, but they're incompetent. They're arrogant, incompetent, and corrupt, which is just a terrible combination. If you're arrogant and competent, like Patton or Grant, or I don't even know if Grant was, but Patton, but if you're, arrogant and competent like Patton, then, okay. But when you're arrogant, incompetent, and corrupt, it's just terrible.
It's a hell of a...
The only way they're getting away with all this is because Ray and the entire DOJ is still covering up for him. We all know. We've all seen the evidence. I mean, anybody who's paying attention has seen all the evidence. No, go ahead.
Exactly. And I think you're talking about the DCS, Defense Clandestine Service. So,
yeah.
Anyways, what I'm trying to get to is I also, my first contract gig was with DOJ. So I think we probably swim in some of the same waters. I'm not a special forces guy. I was an Army MP and a Marine Corps MP. And then I moved about. I had a couple specialties. That's all I'll say. But I started out during the Cold War.
Were you in ISATAP?
Yeah, ISATAP. Yeah, ISATAP.
Okay.
Yeah. In Iraq. Yep. We helped ODA quell the stuff that was by being force multipliers. By the way, You can explain that if you want. But in Al-Qut, Baghdad, and Mosul, that was my final post from '05 to '06. January of '05 to March of '06. And that was in Mosul where I finished out. It wasn't September, I just lied to you. It was November, because I got wounded in Baghdad when I came back to the embassy by a mortar attack.
Pretty wild.
It was nothing big. Dude, it was a flesh wound.
It's still pretty wild to me.
No, it was under the
great.
vest.
That is,
I'm nobody.
You know, you've got warrior written all over you. You just can't help serving. You just can't help yourself. That's awesome. A lot cooler than me. I just in 04, 05, 03, 04, I just sat in Washington D.C. at running the DIA's global operations. So you're a lot cooler than me.
No, I'm not, man. I was, as you knew, ISATAP was being run by General. Why am I mind up in his name, dude? I'm 53 now.
You're a young man.
So, yeah. So I'm mind up in his Petraeus. Petraeus was running ISATAP and Border Patrol and also military training. And General Patton, Marine Corps General, was his underling. You know, he was 1 star at that time. So it matters not. This isn't a measuring contest. It's just I respect what you did. I think we have served probably at some of the similar times. And I've been to Afghanistan and Iraq 5 times each area, also Indonesia, and I speak Arabic, because of the first Gulf War. And so I'm just trying to say, I really respect Michael for having you on, and I really respect that you are breaking down the science, because you and I both know everybody thinks this cabal is so sophisticated, and we've seen the morons, and we've been the morons too. It just boggles the mind. And I'll mute and listen, brother.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, completely. And something, I have pointed out a lot is, I talked about Kenan Hinnant, the little 8-year-old white boy shot in the head by the black neighbor. And they just arrested the murder of the little legend black boy as well. And, they've shot moms holding their daughter's hands, and they shot dads holding their sons' hands and stuff. And they have, and these are domestic terrorists. These are, I have on my shows, I have delineated either the evidence or the intelligence of where the funding has come from and how they have been bought off right up to Hillary Clinton, maybe even to Obama, but certainly easily to Clinton, and how they are trying to now initiate an insurgency. Why? Well, if you look at Hong Kong or Taiwan, you saw American flags being waved. You saw saying Trump, in Second Amendment and singing our national anthem. And that's a grassroots, or, in American terms, Tea Party insurgency. So what they had to do was do their counterinsurgency, because what I'm saying is we're in World War IV, and it's a covert informational, unrestricted psychological operations war.
You know what? I can't disagree with you at all. I've been saying this too. World War III was September 11th. World War IV.
Yeah, we both got both got our GWAT ribbons, right? That's World War III.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't get no ribbons because remember I was a contractor and I was also a Fed my first go around. I got my Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Liberation of Kuwait, and other medals and ribbons. So
were you in 1811 or 1801 or what?
Yeah, I was an investigator, 1800 series. 1811.
Okay. Yeah, I was 1811.
And also I my last gig was with CBP, and that's all I'll say. But you've seen them in action, So that was
Oh
my
yeah, I've
last
deployed.
gig.
I
I was
used to
in
when I
Detroit,
was
Philadelphia.
StoCap, I deployed with Bortec. Um,
Yeah, okay, cool.
and then of course when I was on the southwest border, I worked with BP all the time. I took 1 million border patrol referrals. That was mainly what I did in Nogales. So
Yeah, I worked northern border because I spoke Arabic. So, and I knew what was going on at that time in Detroit, Philadelphia. So, anyways, like I said, man, it's just really refreshing. Maybe offline sometime we can shoot a fat. And I don't want to hold your show up, but man, you are spitting some truth. These people don't realize this is World War IV, and it's coming to your country. And I believe, and if you disagree, that's fine. I believe not that it was built, not that the COVID thing was built in a lab, but it got released. And they had stopped all internal flights. And by the laws of land warfare, remember I was a military policeman, I used to teach this crap. It was a knowingly and willingly released agent throughout the rest of the world because China knew they were screwed, because it was going to interrupt their economy. And they allowed external flights, and so that is biological agent release. And
that's a vector.
A little NBC or now
human beings were the vector.
Yeah. So, anyways, brother, like I said, I want to listen. I'm actually going to hang up offline. Michael can hook you and me up.
You got it.
I think we both see the things the way they really are happening, and most of the people, sadly, don't see it. Anyways, God bless. Thank you very much, Major. And
hey, God bless.
Be well and blessed. All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah, that's a great caller, and I get that a lot, and I get a lot of that offline. And if you want to get a hold of me, just go to jeffreyprather.com, and you can email me at jp@jeffreyprather.com. And I'm on Patreon, and I got lots of websites, but that's the one where you can reach me for the show. But yeah, this is World War IV, and I agree with him. They have violated nuclear, biological, chemical warfare treaties, and they have released this. And that's a interesting point. So it was being developed, as best as I can trace it, and my day job is doing competitive intelligence for companies in the biotech areas, and that's a different website. That's grinx.com. But it was being developed at Fort Detrick, and then it was being developed at Harvard by Dr. Lieber. He's one of the most famous that were arrested by the FBI when they're actually doing their job. And then it went to Canada, and then it was smuggled out in vials inside socks back to Wuhan, and then it was released right outside of the lab. But the combination of you never release a bioweapon without, and by the way, of nuclear, chemical, and biological is by far the worst. It's the scariest. If you look at Nagasaki and Hiroshima today, they're thriving cities. But you never release a bioweapon if you don't have the antidote, and the antidote has always been some mix of hydrochloroquine, azithromycin, and I'm spacing on the other one at the moment. But it has to be normal. And when I was in South America, I was taking, hydrochloroquine,
Yeah, you were
malaria
taking it.
tablets. It's no big deal.
Right. And now that we are on that subject of COVID-19, we've seen another meteoric rise in positive cases in various states. And we already talked about schools returning and, of course, coming back out and going back into quarantine. Some students, not many, but it really depends on what state you are in. And in your location, it hasn't really been too severe, correct?
No, it hasn't at all. And but that's not what you see in the news media. In
Sure,
the news media,
sure.
you see Florida, Texas, and Arizona because they are conservative states. Where it's been the worst, the highest death rate is New Jersey and New York. And part of that is simply because Cuomo, who should be brought up on murder charges. And I don't say that lightly because I understand the law, but he put COVID positive elders back into nursing homes, and he banned hydrochloroquine just for good measure. So that is premeditation. Now the black Georgia DA, I can't think of his name, who was charged the policeman who was chasing Rashard, and the guy resisted arrest and grabbed the taser and ran away and turned to taser him in the face,
That's right.
in the eyes, which could blow up your eyes, by the way. Or he is immobile and defenseless, which is the second pillar of lethal force, which I teach this all the time. The first is fear of life, so yours or somebody else's immediate vicinity. The second is serious physical harm or grievous bodily injury, which is that you can't defend yourself, which if the taser took effect, he couldn't, so he could shoot him, beat him some more, whatever. So it's any of us who have know anything about lethal force doctrine, and that's something you got to teach to police officers, and I've taught thousands and certified them, is that was a good shoot. So to charge murder, that means that cop planned to kill Rashard, which is totally untrue. But the point is,
Jeff, you never went into work thinking today's going to be the day you're going to shoot a black man?
well,
I thought that was quite common.
Anyway, that black DA just lost re-election, and the same thing has happened with that other black female DA, who in the other case of the black bicyclist that they threw him in the back of the van and he died. Now they did some things wrong. They didn't chain him down, and they made an unscheduled stop. When I was transporting prisoners back in the day, I call in and I start my starting mileage and I start my ending mileage, and that's they're tracking me. And if I was ever transporting a female or a minor, I always had another car following me, so that there's not going to be any allegations. There's a chain of custody of that person. They did violate chain of custody, but that female DA tried to say that those 6 officers, some female, some black, some Hispanic, I don't even think there was a white officer among them, in the morning at shift, premeditated to kill this guy. Right. And of course that didn't fly either, because these guys, like your caller said, they're idiots. They're incompetent, arrogant, corrupt idiots.
Well, my issue right now is with all races right now in general, the human race, I should say, those individuals out there who resist arrest for whatever reason, Jeff. I'm not sure who got the memo. They must have got a memo that I didn't, but when did we ever have the right to resist arrest? I'm wondering.
You don't. You're exactly right. In fact, I've taught arrest procedures forever, and there is even a way to teach that, where if they're resisting arrest, that elevates your charges. And all you got to do is be courteous and compliant for the most part, and you're hardly likely to get shot. Right. Now, when I was the keynote speaker at the International Association of Law Enforcement Firearms Instructors, ILFE, that's the biggest abbreviation I know, at their annual training conference, I had cops from police firearms instructors from all over the world. They had classes all week, and at the last day, they had to listen to me all day. And I showed videos of different screw-ups, and I showed a real hands up, don't shoot. It does happen, but nobody's that I know of is trying to do that on purpose. Institutional racism is a fake news myth that is being perpetrated by our enemies, domestic and foreign, for their own purposes. If we had institutional racism, then how did Barack Obama ever become president? If we had institutional racism, then how did Holder ever become attorney general? And then how did Lynch follow on? If you look at Europe, name me a black head of state in Europe. Crickets.
Right.
There hasn't been one. However, we have moved on. Those countries over there are older, so they should be more ahead of us. They're not. So the whole narrative is ridiculous. And if you'll notice, you're seeing it fade a lot now, being replaced by the Antifa, which is really the same thing. These are covert domestic terrorists, and they're going to be wiped out too if they are successful. And I don't think they're going to be successful. They don't have the elements that they need to be successful. That's another subject. But we are certainly experiencing an insurgency. Your caller was a contractor.
Yes.
And I've been a contractor. And that's a two-way street. If you heard about Millennial Millie getting arrested by a secret grand jury indictment, and the guy she was working with for a new documentary, he was a former PSYOP, or he served in 4th PSYOP group like I did, and they were outing how Obama's administration was bringing those PSYOP techniques out and using them against the American people. And that's also what the CIA was doing with MK Ultra. They did that with the Unabomber. But I'll shut up.
There's a long history with all of these things you're mentioning, and yes, the Unabomber and Waco, which something I wanted to bring up to you. But before we even get into any of these subjects, let's finish up with the George Floyd situation really quickly here. George who, right? Everyone already forgot.
Yeah.
By the way, do you think the situation would have been a lot different if they would have released that body footage first?
Well, I saw it early on, and I talked about it.
You saw it early on?
I did. And it's, I'm an intelligence guy. I look for stuff. But Keith Ellison, again, is that corrupt DA there, and he's a Muslim Brotherhood guy. He's a Sunrise Movement guy, and he said he kept it back. More blacks have been shot since then, and mostly black kids and black police officers have been hurt. There was just a teen burned alive now in New York. I predicted that like 2 weeks ago after they were burning flags and Bibles and pigs' heads. And now they're burning people, which is just what the Nazis did. They are really just like the Nazis, nationalist socialists, which are communists, which are Marxists. It's just whatever you want to call them. But yeah, the body cam footage shows that he wanted to be put on the ground. But I can tell you what I think happened, which is a very different narrative.
No, he was freaking out. So, and the officers were very patient, I must say.
Well, so here's some evidence.
Go ahead.
That the initial call was that he had passed a $20 counterfeit bill. Have you heard that?
Yes, I did. I also heard there was a larger counterfeit operation happening at that location.
Yeah, there was. Yes, and CBP, Customs and Border Protection, had just seized about 99,000
right.
Counterfeit bills, probably coming in from China, along with the counterfeit license plates and weapons parts. And so I'm taking evidence. That's fact. And then I'm analyzing the information. And the cop had come up from Florida, and everybody thought he was a real estate. They didn't know he was a cop, which is kind of strange because most cops take their cars home and you see them in uniform. And he wasn't the first responder. He came like 10 minutes later. So to me, having done the job for a long time, and also Floyd was released early from prison, it looks like deep state DOJ elements or state police, I can't remember, released him, put him in there with this counterfeiting thing, and then these cops were corrupt, and they were developing a scenario that they would cross because Floyd was going to be an informant. And so then they used the murder as an incitement for the insurgency. And, that's how I put that together. Very similar to Las Vegas, where the FBI comes in and takes all the phones. Very similar to all these murder-suicides that we're seeing. And what you got to understand, is that the FBI and the DOJ, they don't solve crimes anymore. They manage crimes. And the CIA and the intelligence community, for the most part, does not provide intelligence. They manage intelligence. And they're managing it for their masters, for the deep state. And the head of the deep state right now is Obama, who was in Pakistan for 3 weeks when he was young, where he may have been with the CIA.
Now that I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, nobody asks him because, the media gives, they just want to keep investigating Trump. But you can always tell because it's projection. Whatever they're accusing you of, and I know this from hard experience. That's how I learned to predict this stuff, is because they did it to me. Is what they're doing. Whatever they're projecting on you, that's what they're actually doing.
Understood. And of course, I do have a propaganda reel for you here to make you listen to. This is from the folks of the Lincoln Project. I'm not sure if you've heard this one. It seems like every day they're putting out this material on Trump. It's quite amusing to me personally.
No, I haven't heard
the reviews.
Oh, here we go. Yes, it's very cinematic. Here we go.
The reviews are in.
You have to go by where. Look.
Here's what Trump's own people are saying about him. He's a f***ing moron. Rex Tillerson, Trump's Secretary of State.
We're lower than the world.
Lower than the world. He tries to divide us. James Mattis, Trump's Secretary of Defense.
You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other. Very fine people on both sides.
He's an idiot. John Kelly, Trump's Chief of Staff.
They weren't laughing at me.
A professional liar. Gary Cohn, Trump's economic advisor.
There will be no lies.
He thinks he's God. Barbara Rez, SVP of Trump Organization.
I am the chosen one.
Like an 11-year-old child, Steve Bannon, Trump's advisor.
I don't take responsibility.
I think we need to look harder at who we elect.
I don't think he's fit for office.
I have the most loyal people.
Can America survive 4 more years?
We are better than this moment we're in.
Gotta love that trailer, though. Like a movie, right?
Yeah, it is. And that's, that I think ties into this PSYOP guy, this Patrick Berge, that was putting out the Shadowgate film. And of course, that's what happened with Ted Kaczynski. The CIA created him through Professor Murray at Harvard. And you see this constantly on film and movies. There's a crowd that says that Michelle Obama is Michael Obama.
Right.
And I don't know. I've seen the photos.
I don't know either, to be honest.
And to me, it's kind of irrelevant because that's not really the main issue. But
Right.
then if you look at a Netflix Obama Rice Jarrett sponsored show like Designated Survivor, where the guy plays the president, and then you see the transvestite on the bed of the president's 8-year-old daughter,
Ooh.
and they're showing that as good. And then you see, public libraries where they have transvestites reading hour with kids who are convicted pedophiles, and then you start looking at all the pedophilia and child crimes in Hollywood, and and you start looking at all the Comet Pizza, and you start reading Hillary's emails, Bring My Toy, and Hot Sauce, and all that stuff. There's a lot of evidence.
Now, speaking of Hillary's emails, I think they nixed the deposition on those emails.
I think that's where it is now. It's ping pong, going back and forth.
She's going to get away with all these things.
Well, a lot of my listeners, and I'm sure yours too, are very frustrated with that. I'm very frustrated with just Kleinsmith. Um, but the most important thing is that they are out of power. So that is winning because they're trying to get back in power. And I say that our republic has fallen and we got to defeat the deep state to restore our republic. I don't say we got a two-tier justice system. I just think that's a nice way of saying, our republic has fallen. And we're always going to have corruption in government.
All the time.
But,
right.
But because people are, human nature is, ambitious people crave power. But right now, just like with the arrest of Millennial Millie, with the Flynn thing, with the Trump ridiculous Russia hoax, whereas you see the FBI putting FISA warrants out there over and over and lying repeatedly and nothing happening.
But but in terms of the whole Russia thing and the whole water sport thing with Trump, you could see why people would be led to believe that, right? The whole mix up with the porn star, it gets into people's heads and makes them think, well, is it possible that Trump was a freak in bed? Yeah, maybe. Well, none of our business, but maybe, right?
Right. But that's PSYOP.
Right, exactly.
Just like the whole thing you played there.
It's kind of irrelevant.
There was no evidence in there. So what I'm saying is, as a special agent, as a criminal investigator like your caller, I'm presenting evidence, certain facts. And then as an intelligence collector, I'm analyzing the information provided in the evidence, and I'm giving you, this is probably what's going on. And people are understanding that. And so that's why the left has this ridiculous candidate. Biden can't, be let out. He can't string two sentences together. Another thing I say is that we have to stay in our basements because so Biden can stay in his basement. And Kamala Harris is a totally left-wing. She's done that. What she did to Kavanaugh, she's done many, many times. There's nothing new about this. This is a completely contrived, controlled candidacy, which of course Biden will fade and Harris would step in, and they got to shut everything down so that they can have mail-in voting, so that they can cheat, because Trump has overwhelming support everywhere. There's no way they can run it, but they're not really trying to win. They're trying to stay out of jail, and to stay out of jail, they got to win. They got to get back in power. At least that's what I think, and I hope. I may be wrong.
Understood. And before Trump's run, I always said the only thing that really bothered me about Trump was his affiliation with individuals with Goldman Sachs and, of course, Mr. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And I've been saying that since 2015. Not that I believe maybe Trump was involved in any of these sort of things. I don't know. But that's just always something that's been in the back of my mind. What exactly are your thoughts on Donald Trump being affiliated with these people? But again, I think they were around everyone, though.
Well, he was a businessman, and so he runs with powerful people, just like when I was running sources. If you're going to do a drug deal, you don't use Boy Scouts, you use bad guys. But let's just talk about Epstein with Trump. Trump
Sure.
is not on the flight logs to the torture island. And after he found out that Epstein was coming after little girls, he banned him from his resort, as opposed to the Clintons and Harvard, who gave him, after his first conviction, who gave him a fellowship and a building, and that was all fine.
Yeah, Bill was ID'd, by the way, which is pretty insane that no one's really talking about that either in the mainstream. But 2 young girls by his side.
Yeah, that should be, it's not even worth watching, even Fox.
Yeah, that's sick.
There's nothing to it, really. And they even say 2 young women as opposed to to
Right.
children as opposed to raping children. And they're just following his line is I did not have sex with that woman. Of course, she was over 18. But what I'm saying is I'm looking at the actions. I'm looking at the kinetics. I even have people who say, Trump's in on it. It's just part of this deep state plot. I'm looking, wow, well, the way they're attacking him,
Well, you
assassinations
can't
attempts
ascertain
every
that.
other week.
Yeah, that can't be ascertained right away.
And regardless, he's our best hope for right now.
The terrible thing is, Jeff, it seems like every politician has major skeletons in their closet. Some of these politicians have never even come out of the proverbial closet. Let's just keep it real.
Certainly.
Right.
Certainly.
And power corrupts, like you were saying earlier. And we're led to believe that some of these individuals are some powerful deity, but no angels exist in this realm. Those who claim they are, I'll point out a liar to you.
All you got to do is look at Biden sniffing little kids
Oh my
constantly.
goodness.
He's obviously a pedophile. It's on tape, just like it's obvious with Ukraine, and he's under criminal investigation in Ukraine. And Hunter is involved in Bohai in China. These are obvious things. But the good news, I know it's easy to focus on the bad news that there's no indictments, but the good news is that with all of this, with everything, the intelligence community, the DOJ, the media on their side, they're still losing, even with shutting down the country. So what I say is in 2016, they tried to destroy Trump. That didn't work. So in 2020, they're going to destroy the country. So they're trying to do that. And we should be really angry about that. And the most we should be angry with is the Republicans and the rhinos who haven't done any investigations into the phony Mueller report and everything else. And, and we're holding out hope that Barr, Durham, and Bash are actually going to do something.
Right. And of course, we are coming up to another election here just on the horizon. And we already know that Joe Biden has selected Miss Kamala Harris as VP. You already mentioned some things about her. A lot of people out there are already thinking this one's in the bag, that we will have Joe Biden as our next president. Your thoughts?
Oh, I don't think there's any way he can honestly win at all. You look at, 5 people sitting there and they're falling asleep and he thinks they're out in the rain and he has to be led around. He's obviously if he did win, he'd have an accident real quickly, be murdered, and Harris would step in. But there's no way he can win. Trump's has huge crowds everywhere. That's why they're trying to so COVID will continue to be a threat everywhere to keep everything shut down until after the elections. That's just they'll continue to sow chaos wherever they can. The problem is, like your caller said, is they're stupid and incompetent. Just like I was saying is when you're going to burn down towns, you burn down the enemy's towns. So the cities they've been burning down are the Democratic cities. So what's happening in New York and all these towns, all the taxpayers, the business people, they're all leaving. Now they may come, I have a neighbor who does this. He came from San Francisco and then he wants to come here with his silly left-wing ideas. But the money base is leaving. The resource base is leaving. Chaz was only able to exist because the mayor kept bringing him porta potties and water and food. If it was me, and now de Blasio's setting up checkpoints at his border. I'm fine with checkpoints because real quick they're incompetent. They'll just like siege warfare went out with castles. But if they want to do siege warfare on themselves, I'm happy to let them do siege warfare on themselves. Just don't supply them anything.
By the way, I'm of course in Southern California, and I keep hearing about people moving away, going to Texas and Arizona. Have you seen an influx of state jumpers?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you
it's
have.
huge. It's
Wow.
huge. Yeah.
It is happening. Okay.
Oh yeah.
My
Yeah.
goodness.
It may change. California may flip. Um, I'm not really a political sh- analyst. I'm a military intelligence and law enforcement analyst, and I have a lot of experience with covert operations, so I can really speak to that. But you know, the BLM Antifa guys, they don't do that's a very small percentage that they've thrown their lot in with, and all the taxpayers, all the business owners, they're leaving, and I don't think they're going to vote uh, for them. Just like we saw with this Georgia, this black Georgia DA who tried to bring murder charges against the cop. He soundly lost, and they are soundly losing.
Well, let me tell you something, Jeff. The way I'm seeing things right now, and you might agree with this, the way things are currently going with this election and the Postal Service and all of the issues that have plagued us this year, I think we might end up with another Bush versus Gore, another round of Florida controversy.
Um, well, there's no doubt about that. They're not going to go along with it, but you're seeing they're
It
not
should
going
be
to go along with the
interesting.
results.
It should be
But
interesting.
every day you're seeing, I don't know what you see more of: arrest for child crimes or arrest for voter fraud. There's tons of that happening, and it is happening at lower levels, at state levels. Um, but uh, I have hope and faith. And when you're building a case, obviously the top criminals, which is Obama and Clinton and Comey and Brennan and all those guys, they're on film, perjuring themselves. Well, they're not under oath on film, so lying. Is they are so well protected. So you go up from the bottom. When I would my first big marijuana seizure, 4,000 pounds, I flipped the driver, and that took me to multi 100-kilo cocaine seizures. And you keep moving up the organization. And I think that is what Trump's ex head of security, Keith Schiller, left and is doing. And I think that's why you see all the child crime and university bribe scandals and Hollywood crime indictments. I think that there's security folks who are detectives that are stepping back and building cases and turning over evidence to where we can find it, legitimate law enforcement. The problem is, with the FBI, so much of it's illegitimate. And I have talked to federal agents working Portland while they were up there, so I got a pretty good handle on what's going on.
Right. And of course, you mentioned child trafficking. Why do you think that isn't a major issue that is being focused on in America?
Well, I think it is being focused in America. It's just not being propagated in the propaganda press, in the mainstream media. I mean, if you listen, even to Fox, CNN. A long time ago, I showed clips of Brenda Starr posing as a witness at different crisis scenes and then being an anchor. MSNBC. It's just ridiculous. But even Fox, the press secretary in the White House was showing a clip. I think it was in Seattle where they were arresting a rioter, and she was saying, "I hope you and your family burn alive." And now they are burning people alive. And the black anchor lady, she even has a house out here, said, "Oh, upper management wants us to cut away from this." So, but on Tucker Carlson's show the other night, he spoke about Kenan Hinnant. He spoke about and showed the little 8-year-old boy shot in the head. Well, that started with citizen journalists like yourself and me putting that stuff out there. And it is slowly disseminating into the halls of power, which are controlled. because if they don't put it on, they're going to die. New York Times is bleeding out financially. So child crimes, you don't see on mainstream media the big Hollywood protest of Save the
Right.
Children at all.
You don't.
You just see the same talking heads saying the same thing, and nobody wants to hear that. Tucker Carlson is going forward because he's breaking some stuff. He's pushing his envelopes as much as he's allowed to push his envelopes, which is good because we want to keep disseminating that out there. So, but in the heartland, that is really important. The child crimes.
Sure, and of course, speaking of which, there seems to be an issue with ICE employees sexually assaulting children detainees over an El Paso detention center. Your thoughts and opinions, have you heard of this? Apparently, allegations include guards attacking victims in camera, quote-unquote, blind spots, and telling these victims no one would believe them. Your thoughts?
I haven't heard about that one, but there's always corrupt cops.
There's got, yeah, sure.
I've run across corrupt cops in my time, so I'm sure some of that is true. It's going to get worse because as you defund and dismantle the police, and you don't give them any training and you don't give them any incentive. I mean, the police are leaving in droves. Then you're going to get the dregs. You're going to get people who are just doing it so that they can be power-hungry tyrants, as opposed to people who want to serve. Like your previous caller.
Right.
So it's not. Defunding is the worst thing you can do. What you do is want to fund them. You want to fund them like you fund the NFL guys. And you have a cop of the year and soldier of the year, and but we never get much recognition, which is hilarious because those are the real heroes. If you hear what cops and soldiers and Marines have done, and it's just incredible. But they don't want that.
Yeah, that's not headline news. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of law enforcement officers and people in military who are listeners, and I hear all the positive things that they've done, and I always laugh and think, none of this is ever reported, though.
Yeah, and so I know you got listeners who are serving,
right?
Like your caller, so I want to say something to them.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you're leaving, which is fine to leave because they're not backing you up, I get that, but while you're leaving, grab any evidence or anything of their corruption that can be a backstop for you, and maybe you can find somebody serious to give it to while you're on the way out. Then maybe you got a career as a private investigator or even in a confidential source. I've paid confidential sources hundreds of thousands of dollars. So just a thought there is, if you know about it and you got to leave, grab the evidence and get it out to the right sources, if you can find any right sources, because that'll backstop you if they come after you later. And they've come after me for 15 years. It never works out because the court system is still enough that when you finally get to the truth, it doesn't work. They can't lie, and that's what happened with Trump, and that's what's happening with Flynn. It's happened with Kavanaugh, and I hope and pray is what'll happen with Millennial Millie.
Right,
but
right.
But this is all about intimidation. They're trying to intimidate us, and what I say is, because of Obama and Clinton, I've lost my brothers and sisters in law enforcement, military, and intelligence, and so. To honor the fallen, I will never be silenced and I will never be intimidated.
Understood. And to wrap things up with the whole child sex trafficking and all these things, as you know, Jeff, I'm out here in El Centro, California, very close to the Mexican border, and I am very much aware of all the child trafficking that goes on out here. There's a ton.
Yeah. And
I'm at ground zero for that sort of activity.
Yeah, So what has happened is there is a dark, just like there's a dark web, there's a dark economy,
That's right.
and it's drugs, human beings, and weapons. And like under Obama, when Obama started bringing up, he had his Department of Agriculture go down and tell in Guatemala and Honduras, and I've worked Guatemala and Honduras, great people. Hey, come on up. And they were saying that these kids were coming up to find their relatives. These campesinos in these little towns, they don't know how to find a relative in first world America.
Right.
And they're being escorted up through plazas, through corridors that are totally controlled by transnational drug cartels. So they're being raped on the way up.
That's
they're
right.
being sold on the way up. And that was all done officially under the Obama administration, and it's still going on. That's why you saw with Trump, one of the great things Trump did was there was an executive order about seizing the property of anybody involved in human trafficking, and that's made a huge difference.
Right, and of course you mentioned underground tunnels before. But I've known about these underground submarine tunnels for a very long time. There are multiple naval ports underground around the nation. Even Mr. John Lear and I talked about that before. And in Jeffrey Epstein's island, there are these underground subports as well on the perimeters.
Yeah, and there's one on the next door island that Biden owned and still has an interest in, because what they do is they do it through friends and relatives. And that is one way you transport cocaine. You can transport people, also in shipping containers. There were tunnels under in Seattle. I've gone under into the tunnels and worked several tunnels in Nogales, from Nogales, Arizona to Nogales, Sonora, joint border operations, and that's very common. And another thing that's interesting about that is under Trump, the military started doing a lot of subterranean training. And a lot of people have suppositions that the military has been working those. And if is, warfare, unrestricted warfare through China, which I say it is, then you can use the military for that. And I think that is happening.
By the way, I'm curious what your thoughts on this would be. Do you feel Jeffrey Epstein was perhaps an agent of a foreign government per se?
Yeah, my intelligence indicates that he was with Mossad and United Kingdom, maybe for the U.S., but there are not really strong intelligence indications for that.
Yeah, maybe he wasn't exactly like fully an agent, but more along the lines of let's say an asset of sorts.
Well, an agent is an asset. So an agent in intelligence terms is run by a case officer, and in law enforcement terms, a cop runs an informant or a confidential source. So,
I meant that in the way, that Osama bin Laden was an asset, but yes.
Yeah, I think he was an asset primarily of Mossad, it looks like. And I think that
My
was,
goodness.
There's films for all of that stuff, and that is to compromise. You used to be able to compromise people having affairs and through homosexuality. But as you saw with Stroke and Page, it
Right.
didn't make any difference. He was head of foreign counterintelligence for FBI. No big deal. He's texting about it. So it had to be something even more evil, and so it turned to children. That doesn't speak well of Mossad,
Right.
at all. But under previous administrations, Israel was on the out, so they needed leverage on people. Now Trump has moved the embassy to Jerusalem, and so they're on the inside, and that's probably a big reason why all of a sudden he was finally also arrested.
Understood. And final question on this dark matter. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, perhaps not the biggest impact players of this sort of game, in my opinion. I think there are still bigger names out there that are in the shadows. Do you think that's fair to say?
Oh, certainly. But I think that Ghislaine was running Epstein.
Well, she was a pimp for sure.
I think she was above him because she has connections back to Israel government. I think.
Yeah, because her father.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My God. Pretty crazy how all these things sort of fall in line.
Well, the interesting thing about all this is that we figured all this stuff out. And, you see Stroke and Page and Obama saying Trump will never be president. Why? Well, because we're so smart. Well, they're not smart. They're just corrupt. And they're finding out that they are losing. And something I say a lot also is we are winning, and this is what winning looks like. It's not fun. It's not pretty. It's not over in an hour and a half. But we are winning. Why? Because they're losing. They are not controlling anything. They're not controlling the narrative. They're on the defense.
And Jeffrey, before we wind down here completely, are there any other subjects that you find vital that we should mention to the listeners before we wind down here?
Oh, geez. Gosh, I don't know. We've covered a lot of ground.
Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
No, not clearly. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. It's a scamdemic. The metrics are ridiculous. And really, I guess the most important thing is we're in a fourth world war, and it's being waged by insurgents, but primarily through informational warfare.
And I believe Dr. Strangelove brings up the topic of 5G. Any thoughts and opinions on 5G before we let you go?
I don't really know that much about 5G. It's really going to 6G now. But the important thing is that Huawei, Trump is nixing Huawei and TikTok and all that stuff from letting them control that.
Interesting stuff as usual. And Jeffrey, I do want to thank you for being a part of the program as usual. We did cover a lot of ground tonight, and I look forward to the next time we do this again. And of course, Jeff, I hope everything is going well for you and your family. I hope you all remain COVID-19 free.
We are free, but we are not walking around like masked morons wearing masks because we're not sheep. But thanks for having me, and thanks for the good work that you're doing. So keep the faith, and God bless.
Thank you so much. Anything you'd like to plug before we definitely cut ties here?
You can check me out at jeffreyprather.com and on YouTube, and share and subscribe and follow and check out my books and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Once again, thank you so much, Jeff, and we'll do this again soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Bye-bye. And there he goes, boys and girls. That was the one and only Mr. Jeffrey Prather. And yes, I do have to wrap up the show very soon here, and I do apologize. I know you wanted me to go a little bit longer, but I did receive an email from my internet provider, and they told me that they were going to run some sort of diagnosis in about 15 to 20 minutes from now, if I recall correctly. I'm looking at the time here. I just about 15-20 minutes. And yes, I apologize. Trust me, I want to be on here longer, but I promise I will return on Monday, and that's when I will be with my co-host, Mr. Mike Hideous. He, of course, has drawn assignment to hang out with all of us this Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Definitely come on in. And of course, as we wind down here officially tonight, I just wanted to read, I think I have an email here I didn't get a chance to read last time. I do get some very flattering emails and of course some hate mail that I truly enjoy. I love the hate mail, and yes, Dr. Strangelove, Roman call, yes. You should call. There's only a few minutes left here. Yeah, give me a call before I shut it down, before we pull it here shortly. Yeah, the line is open for you if you want to call in. What's with the big voice guy? Is that my nickname that you've given me now? Oh no, big voice guy, go away. And Ghost did not do show when he should. Ghost, who's Ghost? We have a ghost coming up. I wasn't made aware of this. Soul Sister, are you from North Korea? And yes, there's a pregnant woman and a bride. I don't exactly know what that indicates, but there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not quite sure where she's from. And yes, Victoria and Dr. Strangelove and JJG and Matt. I see all of you out there. And now we are getting a phone call here. Let's go to the phones. And caller, how's it going? Can you hear me okay out there, caller? Caller.
Oh yeah.
There you
yeah,
are. What's up, brother?
It's Kaiser, brother.
Kaiser, you're back. What happened?
Well, I just called. I sent you a Skype. So
oh, did
maybe
you?
You, me, and him can have an offline conversation.
Well, he's probably going to be with the family right now.
Oh, okay.
But I'll give you his details, though. I'm sure he would love to converse with you about all these things.
Yeah, sent you a thing. So it's on Skype. All right.
By the way, I'm glad you're back in the States. I know you had left for a while out there.
Yep, I was busy.
And you're safe and sound.
And I love everybody on the Michael D program. I got to give a shout out to Azuka.
Oh boy,
good man, good person. And you've heard me say this since 2015, bro.
We've been talking about a lot of.
Saying,
yeah, I was going to mention that on the air. I was going to say we've talked about a lot of these things that are happening now. Back years ago, very early mornings. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Very early.
So, very early. Yeah.
Love that.
So it's kind of the way we are. And unfortunately, well, it did come on a couple of the shows. But most of it was offline.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. I mean, I think Asuka got some of it.
We love Asuka, by the way.
I know he did.
Of course.
I do too. He's awesome. And your fan base is growing. I told you.
By the way, we don't know if that's a Kaiser. I must say, we don't know if Asuka is a male or female.
Male or female.
They have not disclosed that yet.
Yeah, or a they, that, whatever.
Could be a tranny. We don't know.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It's a real person.
We still love them, yes.
And yeah, exactly. And the best part about this is that you have a fan base that, and I've said this offline too, and I'm going to say it publicly now. You are the replacement for Art Bell.
Art Bell?
I've said that. Yeah, I've said that to you offline, and now I'm saying it publicly.
Wow.
You are the replacement for Art Bell, and people need to realize and get you on terrestrial, satellite, and YouTube.
I really love that, but I
cover all topics. I know you don't like it.
Well, I mean,
offline.
I stepped on a number of important toes, I must say.
Who cares, man? You are the real deal.
That's true. Fuck them. I don't care. Yeah, right.
Yeah, fuck them.
That's right.
But the best part is you're a good dude, a decent dude. You know me. I'm a decent dude.
Of course, yeah.
This is not mutual masturbation. This is me telling you publicly for the first time why I respect you.
Well,
because you actually look at both sides. You're even-handed, and you just ask the question, and people always tell you the truth.
I love that.
And I respect that.
Well, thank you so much.
Much love to you and all the listeners. Sorry that Kaiser had to call in again.
That's okay.
Somebody said, I like to hear my voice. I guess I do.
We love your voice. It's okay. All right. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
All right, bro.
Stay safe.
Bye.
And there he goes. Yes, very, very nice words there. I really do appreciate that. I really do. Now, of course, I want to get back to this email before we sign off here. I think this might be from someone named William. He says, Michael, listening to you with Linda Emanuel, Newtown, Connecticut, Sandy Hook was satanic drill. They didn't say a satanic drill. They just said satanic drill. Newtown has a large satanic cult center. Dr. Jim Fetzer talks about this. Someone bragged Newtown is the East Coast headquarters of the Church of Satan. Well, that's news to me. I did not know that, by the way. He goes on to say, I researched this claim and, well, not true, right? They do have a Church of Satan there. That I didn't know. He continues to say, I wrote them a few emails. Apparently a bunch of people had their mortgages paid off after the shooting took place. Now that's news to me too. The multiple vids I watched told the story of how fake and set up this whole thing was. From crisis actors, Gov of Connecticut telling us something like this was going to happen. The porta potties, pre-placed food, water table set up a drug dealer's car. Already police taped off. The crowds of people marching around the firehouse, changing their clothes or hats, and many more items. Wolfgang Halbig did wonderful work to get to the bottom of it all and was crucified for it. Poor man, great guy. I have written to him and would give him $100K if I had it. So yes, it was a satanic hit. But there is a vid showing all the kids that died at Sandy Hook signing at the 2013 Super Bowl. Thank you. And that was from Will. My God. And of course I do have some hate mail, but I will save that for Monday. Oh yeah. Plenty of hate mail for you to enjoy. And looking at the clock now, my goodness. I gotta get out of here, folks, before we get cut off. And the time has flown by yet again, boys and girls, and I'm afraid it's time to take it home. I want to thank all of you out there this evening for being a part of the program. And of course, our guest, Mr. Jeffrey Prather. Gotta love him. And of course, I love all of you out there listening to this program. Those who listen live on YouTube, really appreciate you out there truly making it happen for all of us. And of course, those who listen to the podcast rendition of this program, special thanks to you. And remember, you can get a hold of me during the program via Twitter if you're not in the chat. At Michael Decon, send me a message there, and that's where you'll find me. And don't forget, if you are a hardcore listener of the program and want to help fund this program, the best way to do that is by going to patreon.com/Michael Decon. And that is where you'll find even more content. And trust me, it's quite good. I promise. I really do. I'm my biggest critic, and I won't release anything if it was lower tier. And all the shows that I put out on Patreon have been top talent, I promise you that. Just ask anyone who's signed up, they'll tell you. International listeners out there, thank you so much for your support once again. You can find the podcast rendition of this program on iTunes, Google Play, Castbox, and Stitcher. Did I forget any other platform? I can't remember any of these things off the top of my head, but here I am doing it anyways. So interesting night yet again, boys and girls. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. This was pretty goddamn fascinating, in my opinion. So special thanks to Mr. Jeffrey Prather yet again, and look at that. Thank you for the donation there, and I get to see Donald Trump put his face in between the fake breast of Rudy Giuliani, the mayor of America. Yeah, Rudy Giuliani. Great shit there. The mind continues to race, boys and girls. Stay safe, everyone, no matter where you are on this island Earth. I'm Michael Decon, and with that said, the world is a mysterious place, and life itself is a mystery. Until next time, good night, everybody.